Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go to the very interesting news and Ukrainian success for the last 24 hours because Ukraine was able to hit hard the Russian ammunition warehouse which is located in Voronezh Oblast, not actually far away from the city itself, and also Ukraine aimed towards the Russian military airfield in occupied Melitopol, plus there was the strike on the Russian Command, Interference and Surveillance Center. It is located on the eastern side of Ukraine, and there were numerous of the other news which we're going to discuss today. Well, first let's go to Voronezh case, because it was really hot out there. Just look at this huge cloud. It means that the ammunition center really was a big one of the biggest Russia has, or it's better to say had, close to Ukrainian border. Definitely it will interfere with the Russian offensive operations in Ukraine, especially in the Kharkiv region, because supplies from Voronezh Oblast are usually being sent to reinforce the Russian group which is attacking Kharkiv from the north. And according to the latest update, Ukraine was able to advance right into Hlyboke settlement. So the part of the village was liberated, and I believe that Ukraine will push Russians out from the settlement very soon. Even though Russia is sending their forces regularly to this region, the reinforcements, but they are unable to take the ground any longer, it's time for Ukraine to repel Russian strikes. With the success in Vovchansk area and also in Hlyboke and Liptse, so we may 100% say that the Russian offensive in Kharkiv region just totally collapsed, it failed, and the supplies which Russia sent to this region from Voronezh are now being disturbed because Ukraine got rid of one of the main warehouses, ammunition warehouses for this Russian army group. So working behind the front lines for Ukraine is very, very important. I think that ATACMS wasn't used to target this facility. I think it was the Ukrainian-made drone which caused the chain reaction in the warehouse or ammunition depot. Ukraine would have greater success if it were allowed to use ATACMS missiles on the Russian facilities, military airfields, ammunition warehouses, because with drones it's kind of tricky, they're more vulnerable against the Russian air defense. Nevertheless, today's operation was successful. Also, Ukraine managed to get rid of many of the Russian supplies which they sent to the Kharkiv region by physically cutting out the Russian army trucks. My friends, if you like the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may also consider supporting me on Patreon. The link for my Patreon page is available in the video description just below. I use my Patreon because recently I have lots of the issues on this platform. It's my full-time job, so now with some of the video restrictions it definitely gets hard. So you keep me motivated on Patreon. Thank you so much for it. Alright, and there is the Russian military base which was hit today in Melitopol, the occupied territory of Ukraine, the occupied city. It was the main target of Ukrainian summer counteroffensive the last year. The counteroffensive is over and yes, unfortunately Ukraine wasn't able to reach this goal, but Russians are still unsafe in Melitopol, so this is the military airfield which was on fire. Locals shared those kind of the pictures and the local Russian occupation administration confirmed the strike. But they always say that their air defense worked the best, while just some of the drone debris hit the military airfield. Unfortunately, Melitopol is not the base for the Russian military aviation any longer, but still they keep some of the military storages units in that particular place. Simply Russia is scared of losing their helicopters and airplanes. That's why the Russian military command moved their aviation, all of the aircraft, away from the very front lines. They've done it in Melitopol and also in Berdyansk, but as you might remember, Ukraine already used ATACMS at first to target those airfields quite successfully. Russia lost by the time many of the helicopters, and only after that Russia decided to move their aircraft out from the place. And now let's go to the eastern side, the Baltsev, and the Russian surveillance base which was harmless. Actually, it was also the logistics center, and there was the very powerful radar. It's called Zhitel M, the system that is able to recognize everything flying like drones, shells, whatever. Plus it produces the heavy interference to block the signals for the drones or any sort of the communication signal. But it couldn't jam the HIMARS shell. And now it is gone completely. So for sure it's no go anymore for the Russian army. Great success today by Ukraine. Recently, Russians showed how they hit some of the Ukrainian air defense systems like S-300s, plus some of the decoys of the Patriot. It's been confirmed by Ukrainian officials that those were decoys. Well, today Ukraine hit the Russian air defense system Buk, which is also capable. The full video about the case is available on my Telegram channel, obviously, because of the known reason. Well, Ukraine does those strikes on the Russian air defense constantly. Many of the Russian Buk stores are completely gone. Well, how does Ukraine do it? Simply by using the Russian tactics. They showed that the drones like Lancets could be very effective against the vehicles far behind the front lines, so Ukraine started the production of its own Lancet drones. Mainly the production is based in Ukraine, but some of the production was moved to the Czech Republic for more safe country. And clearly this is the Russian Buk. Two of the missiles on the top are missing. Probably it was used already by Russia and was identified as the ground target, and later on our drone operators nailed it from the first attempt. As you see, Buk tried to get out from the place. Its radar spotted the drone flying towards it, but it was too late. Also, I posted on my Telegram the Ukrainian Bradley operation. I think it happened during the night time because we have this thermal camera image. Well, Bradleys are also equipped with state-of-art aiming equipment with night vision cameras, thermal cameras. The Russian aiming equipment is just sucks compared to the Western made. So the Bradley was working absolutely freely against the Russian positions. They took some of the buildings. As our guest reported, it happened in the New York village or the small town. Well, before Russia tried to enter this village, well, based on this image, I might say that they've occupied some of the buildings and households, but not for a long time because Bradley was really successful against those. Well, Russia might continue to push, but some of their infantry forces are refusing to fight because of the heavy losses. And again, Russia wants to conscript those who already obtained wounds. So this guy, the Russian officer, went to the local Russian company unit and ordered them directly to take part in the new assault. But they've just finished the previous assault, they lost many of the army men, and as you can see, for example, this guy has something with his leg, as well as some of the others start to complain about their situation, that those attacks are just mid-waves. Well, this Russian officer told them that they should go, otherwise he would call a military police, which will arrest the Russian soldiers and later on prosecute them, and they might obtain several years in prison. But those soldiers still refuse to go because it's the one-way ticket for them and they understand it. So this Russian officer or commander started to argue with Russian soldiers, accusing them for betraying their country, motherland, fatherland, and later on he even started to curse them. It tells a lot about the spirit of the Russian soldiers. Well, speaking in general about the Russian losses, here you may see the statistics. So Ukrainian statistics is somewhere over here. And here's, for example, you can see the statistics from the CIA, the Russian opposition sources, the United States officials. Well, the red color over here is the total loss, so complete losses for the Russian side. And usually there's 3 times more of the wounded personnel, so actually this statistics is correct. And also we have the scale of the 2022 year, so this statistics is more valid for this time. It means that definitely Russian losses are crazy. Russia lost more soldiers in this war than humanity lost during all of the periods of conflicts or wars after the Second World War. That's how big those losses are. So if someone says that Russia is winning, just show those numbers. They're not winning. Russia has already lost the half of their official army, and they constantly conscript. They're also in lack of the army men. That's why they're even negotiating with North Korea to send some sort of the engineers, but we understand that they require the active duty soldiers. You might say, Dennis, but Russian army is winning. Just look at their advancement. They've took this part of the Chasiv Yar. Wow. And now they go to Toretsk, taking just a few of the quarters today under their control. So Russia is winning and you tell just lies. But if you zoom out from the place and look at the Ukraine and see the territory and how many of the cities, villages we have, well, I would say that with the current Russian losses, they don't have enough population to occupy Ukraine. They might just have some sort of the advantages, but just in a few points of the front lines. Even now, Ukraine is able to push Russians out, for example, over here in Kharkiv Oblast. So Russia is not winning. They are struggling, they are out of the military and human resources. For this reason, right now, just before elections, they throw everything they have. They want to negotiate. You may say that Putin announced the impossible negotiation policy since he wants to occupy all of the Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporizhia oblasts, but it is just the start of the bargain, so Putin will be happy to occupy what he really was able to occupy at this particular moment. But Russian economy is now working to support the Russian army, so he thinks that in a couple of years he'll be ready to attack Ukraine again, and this time Ukraine will obtain much less military support because, many of the allies would think that the war is over, and Putin plus the Russian army might handle it much better, learning on their own mistakes. They might even start a new intervention towards Kiev. So for Ukraine, the main priority is now to defend the country, and first of all, Ukrainian army itself. Yes, by retreating in some points, but there will be the moment of the breakthrough, then Russia will run out of their resources almost completely, because throwing everything to the front lines is a bad policy for Russia in a long-term perspective. And in general, Ukraine potentially has much greater support compared to the Russian Federation. The only thing that might save the Russian advantage on the front lines, well, maybe it's China. But so far, China is not willing to help with direct military support. For this reason, Russia absolutely needs the ceasefire to take a breath. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that they want to finish this war. No, Putin has his goal and he wants to achieve it by any cost. By the way, we have the new military map update, and for today, just enemy advances on the front lines, unfortunately. They're trying the new direction not far away from Kupiansk, but guys, again, it means absolutely nothing if we speak about the war strategy in general. By the way, Russians tried to advance towards Kharkiv. They lost hundreds of their army men and lots of the army vehicles, and now they want to go from this side to Petropavlovka. So it was yesterday and today just a small advancement. Also, Russia continued their attempts to occupy Krasnohorivka, so yesterday and today they've took this stadium, I think. They need Krasnohorivka to go later on to Kurakhove. And in the Ocheretino direction, Russians moved just a little in Yevhenivka. I would say it's really almost nothing, just this part of the field. So for today, Russia is not really that successful. But Putin still thinks that he can push Ukraine with his mighty force, which is not mighty force after all. I mean, here we see that Ukraine is fighting very effectively against the Russian army. Because for every feet of the ground Russia takes, they also have tremendous losses. Alright, absolutely great news from Netherlands. They will supply one more Patriot system to Ukraine. However, as it was reported, the number of the launchers is limited to 4. But it is still a capable Patriot system with a radar, with command center and so on. Totally we expect Ukraine to have around 8 of the Patriot systems this summer. Also great news from the United Kingdom. A new defense minister has already announced a new military package for Ukraine. They'll supply more of the self-propelled artillery systems AS-40, 10 of the units, it's quite good, 90 of the anti-tank missiles, some of the small boats, not some but many, 50, 40 of the demining vehicles, 61 bulldozers for building the defense lines. As you see, the new UK government is oriented to support Ukraine with new packages, so the news are awesome. Meanwhile, Russians cut the bridge connection with their Iskander missile in Oskil River. The bridge is located between the Osino village and Kupiansk-Vuzlavy, which is the train station, and here goes the Oskil River. Let's zoom in to check out more details, so definitely this bridge was cut by Russians. But Ukraine can still move its forces via Kupiansk itself, so this is the main supply line, and this was the secondary one. Unfortunately, there are no many bridges across the Oskil River in this area, but also Ukraine might create the pontoon bridges very fast, because this area is under Ukrainian control and the actual front line is far away still. Well, there is the confrontation between one of the main Russian military bloggers and the Russian Chechen battalion Akhmat. Well, this guy's surname is Romanov, or maybe it's his nickname. He follows the Russian propaganda, but at the same time, he knows the attitude in the Russian society towards, for example, Chechen battalion Akhmat, TikTok warriors, and sometimes they even tell the truth about the desperate situation within the Russian army. For example, he said that Russia is forced to send some of the young soldiers conscripts to protect the border of Belgrade, and sometimes those conscripts are taking part in a real fight. And there were numerous of the reports how Ukraine uses FPV drones on the Russian territory to hit the Russian bases with those conscripts. And he also added in this video that TikTok warriors are staying behind the front lines, even behind those conscripts. Yes, he called the Ahmad battalion a TikTok warriors. So what happened after? Well, the TikTok warriors basically kidnapped him and forced him to say his apologize to Ahmad battalion. And he said, yes, it was my fault. I definitely meant that TikTok soldiers are the Ahmad battalion soldiers, and they're not staying behind the front lines, behind the conscripts, but they're fighting together with conscripts. So this stuff is actually encouraging that there is internal conflict between Z supporters and Ahmad supporters. Awesome. Well, after all, they let this guy go because he's kind of the big media figure, but who knows what might happen to this guy. What do you guys think? Is calling the brave Ahmad warriors TikTok battalion is insulting? Well, I think yes, absolutely. This guy should watch his back. A propaganda video from Orban about his visit to Moscow. Then he goes to meet Putin. You see, Kremlin, my dream. There's the Russian delegation and Putin. Oh my god, slow-mo walking. It's absolutely great. So he met his own favorite lover in Putin, and it seems like Putin is also satisfied. Well, they speak a lot. You see how Hungary is big? It speaks with Russia. Wow. And in the end, they published this, Hungary 24 EU, Hungarian presidency of the Council. Well, before the European Commission already told that it's the visit of the Hungary itself that shouldn't represent the European Union. But they put this sign over here? For what reason? Right, Russia lost one more Sukhoi 25 attack airplane today. Ukraine is really successful in using the portable man-pads, and more of those are being delivered to Ukraine recently by our key allies. Today there was the second round of the elections in the French parliament, and I'm quite surprised with those results, because I was sure that the far-right alliance might win the elections, but actually they lost. According to the exit polls, they even lose to Macron's party, and will have between 132 and 152 seats in the parliament. So leftists actually won the elections with their new Popular Front party that will take between 172 and 192 seats. And Macron's party will take between 150 and 170 seats, so Le Pen loses to both of those parties. Well, for leftists for sure, but here could be a draw. Well, actually it's not the first time that it is happening in France. I think that there was Le Pen's father in charge of the far-right alliance or any sort of the far-right party by the time. They also got majority in the first stage of the elections, but later on the other electorate just mobilizes just not to let the far rights to take the parliament. The same as it happened today, so we are still waiting for the official results, but usually those are pretty much similar to the exit polls. Well, what it means for Ukraine, guys, honestly, I'm not into the French policy, but I think that Ukraine is capable to keep support from France. Well, even far-right alliance with Le Pen said that they will continue the military support of Ukraine. They were just going to limit it at some stages, but I think with this majority it's not possible any longer, and the Macron's plan to send some sort of the instructors to Ukraine after all might work. The same news we have from the other channels, the figures are very close to each other, but definitely we should wait for some time for the official result to come out. There is the article dated from the last month where the New Popular Front, the party that is winning the elections, pledged to unfailingly defend the sovereignty and freedom of the Ukrainian people and to provide Kyiv with arms delivered. So it's a good sign, I think. Iran temporarily lost its military ship. What happened? Basically, it tilted to the side and sank partially. The name of the ship is Sahan, and I think that they might restore it. Right, Ukraine is testing the new way of how to handle the Russian drones. For example, using those ultralight airplanes. I think that this is the Air Prague 22 or something. So basically there are two guys on board, one is flying the machine and the other one tries to hit the drone. This is the drone target the Ukrainian made, just to see if this way of the operation is effective against the Russian drones. But I must say that it is only possible to use those kind of the lightweight airplanes behind the front lines, at least 20 kilometers behind. Otherwise, Russia might try to shut them down using their tours or books, the air defense systems, but we have the good example how Ukraine operated already with Yakolev 52. It's also the piston engine airplane used for aerobatics, and as I know, it already shut down many of the Russian drones. So why not to use this variant massively? Kind of the good idea. I would say even more. It's better to have some sort of that lightweight aircraft with machine gun on the top and the single pilot operation. Yes, it's the World War II style, but could be also very effective. Because after all, this particular ultralight aircraft is kind of slow one. I'll not say today lots of the stuff about the United States politics, but what we might see that Biden really shortened the gap between him and Trump. For now, it is just a couple of the percent. It's not a great advantage of Trump or disadvantage of Biden, because still there is lots of the things that could happen in the future. I just wonder if the possible support of the other candidate from the Democratic Party would be that high as the support for Biden. Could be even higher, who knows? Well, it pretty much depends on the candidate after all. My friends, I just found this random video of mine on TikTok by the time I was flying the Boeing 737 for Ukraine International, and there I fly with Dmitry Krivenko at this particular flight from Dalaman. Two captains on board. But a little bit more than 1 year ago, Dmitry Krivenko was basically killed by the Russian missiles or by the Russian army. He wasn't flying as the Air Force pilot, but his car was ambushed on the way to the south. He was delivering some sort of the drones. So he was a really great guy, great friend. Just randomly saw this video. It's like a memory video filmed 3 years ago. Then we started our operation from the COVID crisis. There were just few of the flights, but nevertheless I got them on camera. And there are so many losses also from Ukrainian side that there is no any family who would not lose friend or relative. The war is definitely terrible. My friends, if you want to support my channel, just press your like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.